So it being 6 o'clock, call the meeting to order, which has been noticed at 6 o'clock for the June 5th school committee meeting. The agenda is approval of minutes of 5/8/24 and 5/20/24. Welcome our new student representative. Superintendent's report, assistant and director of finance report, who I think is recovering, I hope, from a recent operation, which I think was yesterday, and the assistant superintendent. School committee member reports, citizens' requests, a discussion of the English program update, student handbook approval for all schools, each of all schools, and executive session under Chapter 30A, Section 21. Its purpose to discuss contracts, and then we will come back out of the executive session to discuss and vote on the food services contract. After that, adjournment. So all who can, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So the first order is approval of minutes. Is there a motion on approval of the minutes?
I would like to move to approve the minutes from May 8th and May 20th.
Is there a discussion? The updates of the minutes were provided to the committee based on some corrections that I asked to be made. And so that updates us, I think, to that point, and that's your motion.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you very much. All those in favor? All right, 5-0-0. Unfortunately, you don't get to vote.
Okay.
You can show your general favor.
Yeah, you can agree. You can agree, and if you have them, certainly your interest can be spoken to the extent that any questions you might have on the minutes that we just approved. And so we welcome our new student representative, which is Reagan Sullivan. Can you give an update, I guess, on yourself for the rest of the world and the committee too?
Sure, I can do a little introduction about myself.
Thank you.
So I just want to say thank you, and I'm honored to be serving as the student representative for the upcoming year. I'm super excited to see all that we accomplish next year and like the new ideas and perspectives that I can bring to the table. About me, I'm an athlete at the high school, and I'm also involved in numerous clubs like Student Council, the Teen Mental Health Initiative, and I also participate in the arts. So I'm really excited to be the voice and representative of the student body and help make next year, not just for the high school, but all the other schools in our district, a good one. So thank you again, and I'm super looking forward to next year.
Thank you, Reagan.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody else have questions for Reagan? Not yet, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Superintendent's report.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to meet with Reagan yesterday. I think when we add a student representative, I think it's important, we were able to thank Hallie for her service. I saw her at graduation and had some nice closing conversation with her, and she really enjoyed her time here as well. And it does kind of shift your lens and perspective around your knowledge of the district. And so Reagan and I were able to have a planning meeting yesterday and look towards like the role she can have. And one of the things we were talking about is expanding the reports we get from the elementary schools all the way up through the high school next year. I think that's something Reagan's really comfortable embracing, and she'll work with our principals to make sure you're getting a real set of good updates at each of the meetings. And we had an opportunity to really talk about her role being to hear student voice, bring it to the table, to be able to actively participate. And so it was just really enjoyable. Of course, we know that she has good coaching from her mother, who has many years of both legal experience but also school committee experience. So I think Reagan will probably keep you on your toes while I'm off trying other new ventures. So welcome, Reagan, and I'm glad I get to be with you tonight and see you in the role, and I think you'll have a good year. In terms of my other updates tonight, I just want to acknowledge that this is my final school committee meeting, and I want to thank you for what an incredible 10 years it has been. I'm somewhat in denial, like I'm kind of breezing through all of these experiences and just finishing things, and I'm very focused on closure with just things I want to have wrapped up before I leave, and that tends to be where I'm putting my focus, but I haven't actually stopped to think about thanking people for the opportunity to serve in this community. I appreciated being hired. I believe Steve called me a reasonable risk, and I always found that one of my fondest quotes. And I believe I proved that I was a reasonable risk, and that the work has been a really shared venture between a whole array of, I see some people in the audience who I've spent many years working with, past school committee members, who I think have really built, pulling from an incredibly capable district and just amplifying good work and continuing to look at good to great has been a really fun and purposeful focus here for me, taking the bones of what is a really fine district and an enjoyable community and just amplifying that work and bringing teams together has been incredibly joyful work for me. So I want to thank you. And tonight, your meeting is just a nice wrap-up. It's not no heavy lifting, hopefully. A meeting that then sends you off to the summer. And I do want to say we've continued to have some very nice transition meetings with Allison. She'll be here one more day next week. She sat in on the strategic planning committee. She participated in starting to structure taking over cabinet with them to talk about retreat. I feel like she's had a good exploration of the district, and on the 12th I'll be doing another round of meetings with her, just kind of letting her get comfortable with all the work and answering questions. So I think you made a very fine choice. She's thoughtful, she's kind, she's intellectually very, very good thinker, and she wants to be successful here, and that's what works. So I look forward to hearing good things. So thank you. And we are going to steam towards closure of the district. The 14th will be the last day for schools, other than that Hastings and Fales will have an additional half day on Monday. Daniel and I will be circulating and visiting at closure on the 14th. The weeks have gone very smoothly. We still have some sports teams competing and finals and wrap up, and so there's all of the moving on ceremonies are happening. I mean, it's just still exceptionally busy right up until the 14th. So we will be keeping our fingers crossed that it just continues smoothly. And again, thank you for what's been a really fun stretch.
I guess at this point we'll let the town know that we hope to wine and dine Amber tonight, but there's a party for her, I think, much bigger on the 20th, where anybody who can should contact number of people in the school to sign up for that. I think we'll all enjoy that, but hopefully, at least amongst ourselves tonight, we'll visit with you and remember a lot of things.
Yeah.
So, with that, Daniel.
I just want to echo that it's the end of the year, we're wrapping things up, and if you see the rituals at the schools with plays and, graduation ceremonies, and tomorrow we have our milestone ceremony where we acknowledge faculty who have been with us for 10 and 25 years and people who are moving on and retiring. It's always a very nice event, and of course we will be acknowledging
Yeah, it's weird.
Amber Box. There'll be many events where she gets toasted and roasted before she leaves. So, but we're looking forward to a smooth end of the year here.
Very good, thank you. And as I mentioned, Anita is, I hope, recovering well from her operation.
She was working today. I called her. I'm like, stop it.
Tough person.
Yeah.
Okay, school committee reports.
So not much to report tonight. I would just like to say welcome to Reagan. Congratulations to all of the Westborough seniors who just graduated, and obviously congratulations and thank you for your service as well to Amber. So really appreciate everything you've done for the community, and sad to see you go, but excited for your new role. So
Thank you.
Sarah?
Same. So Reagan, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations to you. I look forward to working with you next year, or the next school year rather. I urge you to be in touch with Hallie if possible, because I think it's really important that the work that's been done, somebody take that torch and move it forward so that we can continue the good work that she's been doing as well, along with what you're going to bring to the committee. So very excited about that. So Amber, speaking about reasonable risk. I was going to say, the bigger the risk, the higher the payoff. So I certainly think that you have done us more than well. I want to speak a little bit about, I went to graduation because my daughter graduated, but I don't always get to attend the graduation, or I'm not able to make it there. But baccalaureate the night before was really a very touching ceremony for me. I was able to witness the work of our district. The students, their performances, their speeches, the way that they demonstrated what they are learning in this district was so evident and so beautiful to witness. And I urge everyone to take some time to watch it if you can. You'll be so impressed with the level of use of language in the speeches that were given, and then our fine arts department, and how we need to continue to support them and do everything we can, because they're doing amazing, amazing work. So very excited, and I am sure that Allison is going to, she had told me that she looks up to you greatly, which I believe, so I'm very excited to work with her, and I think that she's going to do a great job. But thank you for everything you have done. I only got, not even, I guess a year with you. But it was wonderful, and I got a lot to learn myself, so thank you again.
Steve?
Yeah, I'd like to echo the same sentiments. Welcome. It's great having you here. I look forward to working with you next year. And then, of course, Amber, it's been wonderful. It's been a pleasure getting to know you. My kids have been in the district 8 years now, and so we've been here for much of your tenure. And you inherited a good district, but took it to a much higher level. And it's just, you've done such a phenomenal job, and it's really been wonderful to be able to watch you work with such grace and ease, and yet as a powerful force.
Thank you.
And so, I want to say thank you for all of your hard work.
Yakub?
Welcome. Reagan, I wish you all the best in the coming year. I hope you're going to learn a lot, and will benefit from you being here. I'm excited for the updates from all the schools, not just the high school. I think that's a great idea. And I don't have any other updates than just thank you, Amber, for your service for the 10 years. I've known you personally, and now I get to see how much you do in between the lines, and I get to appreciate this job, and I admire your work ethic, the attention to detail you have, despite having so many big items on the plate all the time. The time you spend with the community, I think you set the bar really high for Allison and for anybody after you. So I'm only upset that it's been such a short time for me on the committee while you've been the intendant. But I'm looking forward to the next chapter, and wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
I guess my comments are, I can't be held accountable for things I've said. Some things were good and some things weren't. But I'll say this, that, over the years, I think in the beginning we had a lot of differences of opinion in terms of the way things were going. Obviously, I was convinced that we were going in the right direction based on Amber's leadership. And so it's been, I guess, quite a ride for me in terms of watching the system improve, as was mentioned by Steve, over and above what we see in our neighborhood, as well as how the whole process works. So I think not only does the school committee thank her for her effort, but I think the community does as well, and will, I think, on the 20th. So I'm looking forward to that.
Well, that's kind. Thank you. The best gift you give a superintendent is a strong school committee that supports the work. And so, my good work is only possible because you guys across the board and your colleagues before you have leaned in on doing the work as well. And so I think it is a joint effort, and so Allison is in good hands. And so I appreciate that you need to think about what it is to be the backdrop to someone who's trying to figure that work out, and to help them and to lead with them. So I'm confident she'll be successful, because I think you guys are in a good place. So that will be important work for you.
Thank you. And I guess to point of the committee reports, the two things that I've had on my plate for the last couple of weeks have been the ITC credit for the town. That paperwork is just about done. I'm hopeful to get probably the signature required before you go.
Yeah.
And so that's good. As far as the paperwork goes for the MSBA, I believe we're now complete and acknowledged by Vertex, and so that will be put in the box for MSBA to react to. Just so everybody knows, these things will probably take quite a while before we see the benefit of it, particularly the MSBA. Seeing money come back from them may be up to 2 years because they're understaffed and they only react when they have to. So with that, I guess that closes our report, and we can move on to the next agenda item. Is anyone here for citizens' requests? Unfortunately, you have to hear our story first, but go ahead.
Before we begin, we will remind everyone of the school committee's policy regarding citizens' requests. You must be a current resident of Westborough. Speakers are allowed to address the school committee about issues within the school's committee's purview. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to speak to the school committee. Written comments longer than 3 minutes may be presented to the presiding chair before or after the meeting. You're welcome to hand the chair additional comments in writing now or send them via email, and the chair will share them with the other school committee members. Public comment by residents at this meeting is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and the school committee. It is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues within the school committee's authority. Our role is to listen carefully to what you have to share with us tonight. Clapping, cheering, calling out, or any other noise during or following a speaker is not allowed. At the close of citizens' requests, school administrators may address what was shared by the speakers if they wish to do so. State your name, please, and your address. Speak directly into the microphone.
Kristen? I should have had you read it.
I think I know it by heart.
Yeah.
Kristen Vincent, 5 Jennings Road. I'm here to speak about graduation. So I'm speaking today to express my deepest gratitude for the exceptional graduation experience provided for our high school seniors and their families. Thank you to the Westborough High School administrators, faculty, and staff for all the layers of organization, communication, coordination, and attention to detail that go into the big and small events and festivities that honor and celebrate our graduating seniors. Some big projects and activities take months to pull together, such as creating the yearbook, producing and rehearsing for Mr. WHS, and all the senior week events, senior ball, baccalaureate, the memory lane stroll, the graduation ceremony, and project graduation. And even seemingly smaller things like the flash mob dance in the high school lobby. While Westborough High School empowers students to take on many aspects of planning and executing these events, they also involve staff who dedicate many extra hours of chaperoning, directing, monitoring, and mentoring our seniors. So thank you to the high school teachers who take on these responsibilities. I'm grateful that this district does everything in its power to hold graduation outside so that each family can have an unlimited number of guests attend. And I must acknowledge our high school assistant principal's impressive reading of each graduate's name. Thank you for the care and concern that is invested in doing that. Thank you to the faculty and staff who attend graduation. The 5th grade teacher who committed to attending the graduation ceremonies of all her students, the staff who assist our students with special needs to ensure everyone is fully included in the graduation ceremony, and the high school teachers who hang around on the turf to take photos and say goodbye to students after the ceremony. Thank you to all the community partners who provide scholarship opportunities to our graduating seniors. The amount of financial support given out is impressive, and the continued support from our community for our students is remarkable. Thank you to Westborough TV for being everywhere to capture and record all these special events, and for rebroadcasting some video archives of our seniors, such as their 2nd grade performances of Going Buggy. The week leading up to graduation is full of celebration, pride, inclusion, responsibility, and high standards for staying safe, keeping it together, and having fun. So thank you so much to everyone involved in acknowledging and supporting our high school seniors. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's so nice. We should send that to Brian.
It's been a long time. I've been watching you. I usually watch I watch you the day after on double speed. Yeah. So I am Lisa Edinburgh, 8 Nash Street. Good evening, respected members of the school committee and administration. Tonight is an important milestone for the Westborough Public Schools, as this is Superintendent Bach's final school committee meeting. As a longtime volunteer in the schools, a parent, and a former member of the school committee for 6 years, I want to say thank you, Amber. Amber, over the last 10 years, you have led the Westborough Public Schools with integrity, focus, determination, expertise, professionalism, and an impressive level of caring for students, families, faculty, and staff, and our community as a whole. You leave behind a legacy of excellence, not just in academics, but across the experiences of our students. Arts, sports, clubs, activities, personal development, character development, and inclusion. Less visible at times to the public, your tenure has brought improvements to the district's processes for budgets, curriculum, and program development, capital planning, and professional development for faculty and staff. Each of these contributes to the quality of education and the students' experiences in our schools. You have certainly faced some significant challenges. To name a few, the construction of 2 new buildings, the Early Childhood Education Center and the new Annie E. Fales School, the founding and enhancement of the Borough Program and the build-out of the Sugar Shack and Borough Program Center, major renovations and repairs to 3 other buildings, enrollment spikes that were considerable for a period of time, rapidly changing student demographics and needs. And in case we forgot, the COVID-19 pandemic. You rose to these challenges, engaging and partnering with staff, parents, town departments, nonprofits, and the community. When I think about these challenges and your tenure as a whole, I will most remember one thing: your caring. Every decision you have made has considered the impact on our students, faculty, staff, families, and community. The Borough Program and Sugar Shack is one big example of your caring, and so are the creation of the free breakfast program, the expansion of athletics, the arts and clubs, the school's partnership with Westborough Connects. And while it has been mentioned before, during COVID-19, you ensured students and families in need could pick up or have delivered breakfast and lunch. And when you learned that families and students were struggling with food insecurity and the food pantry was temporarily closed, you turned the lobby of Gibbons into a distribution center with a team of volunteers that shopped, sorted, boxed, and delivered food and essentials to dozens of families. As superintendent, you led the administration of our schools. Your time as superintendent has been so much more than just administration. You brought and shared your heart and soul. My family and I are grateful to have been in our schools during your time as superintendent. I am proud to have served with you during my terms on the school committee. Your presence, caring, and leadership will be greatly missed. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank you, Lisa. Anyone else? Seeing none, we can move on. Okay, it's time for the English program update, please.
Good evening. I believe we're still waiting for a couple of members, so if we're to who are going to be presenting tonight, so if we could move to maybe to the handbook item on the agenda, that would be...
Okay, we can do that. We'll come back to this presentation on the English program update. So with that, the school committee has been provided with the various school handbooks for all the schools, and we were presented with those text changes at the last meeting, which was 2 weeks ago. Our members have had a chance to review them, and we have had written changes to them that were delivered to the committee today. I think we saw the editorial changes before that, but I think the text now has been edited based on those comments. So with that as the background, anyone wish to speak to it first before we take a motion? I don't see anybody jumping into that one.
You guys gave, I have to say, more attention to the handbooks over the last couple of years than we've done in a long time, and I think it's good work, and it cleaned up a lot of details. It was good conversation, and it gives you, by looking at the handbooks, a very clear snapshot of life on the ground in the schools and the types of things that we're providing guidance to on parents. So I appreciate the time and energy that you've put into it, and I think it lifts the game of what's included in there, and the principals have appreciated the feedback as well. So I just want to thank you. It takes time to edit and look and read, and I just want to say thank you. I think it was very reflective work.
Very good.
Can I actually ask one question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just, I'm just curious. How are the changes conveyed down the chain in the buildings and to the teachers every year?
Great question. So typically the handbook would come through faculty meeting review, discussions at, or messages sent by principals. It really depends. I mean, some are more substantive, where they would have had a committee or a group of faculty look at a piece of procedure. Like, for example, I think a couple of years ago when they looked at the dress code again at the high school, they had a committee of students and faculty that had been working on that. And so then the revisions had come through that process. Most of the updates are flowing from some of the policy upgrades that you've done here that need to move into handbooks and become procedural pieces. So typically it would come through either memos, meetings, or a subcommittee.
Thank you.
Any comments, Reagan?
No.
Okay. If discussion's ended, is there a motion?
I will move to approve the student handbooks.
Is there a second?
I will second.
Any further discussion? If not, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
500. Thank you.
Okay. There's still one member of our
right.
missing, but I think we're ready to proceed. So I mean, given the agenda that you have before, I mean, at this point, this is standing between us and executive session, and the four presenters, who are now three right now, know each other and what they'll be presenting very well. So I'm going to introduce. Can the three of you come on up? And these are basically the leaders of our English Language Arts program in the school district. And this from kindergarten or pre-K through grade 12. They're three very talented people who have been involved for the last couple of years on an in-depth review and then enhancements as a result of the review of our English department standards, assessments, and programs. And last year at about this time, I think you may remember, they came before you and reported out on the end of the committee's work with a plan laid out for implementation, this being the first year of the implementation. And they've done an extraordinary amount of work, and I'm pleased to have them here tonight to be able to fill you in and report out on what they've done this year and give you a little bit of advanced information about what we will be doing in year 2 of the implementation. So can each of you introduce yourselves, and then we can start with the presentation?
Want to start?
Sure. I'm Cheryl Tucker. I'm the department chair at the high school.
I am Stephanie Nephew, the literacy coordinator, grades 4 through 8.
Christina Cooney, literacy coordinator, pre-K to 3.
So I will take care of the moving the memo here.
Sounds good.
The way you want, but I know you have talking points. It's not a formal PowerPoint, but they put very succinct sort of summary here for you to be able to review. But I think they're just at this point going to talk you through what you've been working on this year, what objectives you set for the year, and what you have accomplished, and again, what we're going to be doing going into next year. So thank you for coming tonight.
Great. So we started, last year you heard us talk a little bit about one of the recommendations from the review committee was to refine our K-6 assessment plan to better align with the Massachusetts curriculum frameworks and also more evidence-based practices. So last summer, for K-2, we convened a committee consisting of reading specialists, kindergarten through second grade teachers, special educators, and we looked at our current assessment protocols and saw where there was alignment and then refined and adjusted them. So there's now less overlap across the amount of assessments that we're doing and the skills that are being tested. We also looked at a variety of more comprehensive assessments. We have currently been using the DRA, the Developmental Reading Assessment, and we articulated to you last year that there were a number of concerns with this assessment, that it wasn't quite aligned with the state standards or current evidence-based practices. And so we looked at a variety of assessments and are going to be moving away from that. And so we came up with a plan to do that.
Another area around assessment was to look at our grades 3 through 6 assessment plan, and our goal was to implement a digital adaptive screener for grades 3 through 6, partly to ensure some more consistency around our assessments, to have some ease around collecting the data and be able to share them across schools and across grades. And so the work that we did this year was to really examine the options that we have. So we examined the different screeners that are out there. We looked across the Commonwealth to see what schools were using different screeners, talked to different people in different school districts to get some feedback around strengths and areas of concern within the screeners. We selected 3 that we wanted to dig deeper in and invited reps to come in to share sort of the details of the screeners with a group of teachers and reading specialists across grades 3 through 6. After that committee sort of really examined the 3 screeners that we had selected, we picked one to pilot, which we did in March. And so the pilot consisted of implementing both in Tier 1 classrooms as well as Tier 2 reading teachers also administered the assessment. And we had an opportunity to really look at the data, what it provided for us. And we are going to move forward in implementing the iReady adaptive reading screener in grades 3 through 6 next year. So we'll be doing some fall training. The first implementation phase will start in September, and we will be doing that assessment 3 times over the course of the school year. And it will be used as our assessment tool to really look at growth over time, to provide communication from one grade to the next, and it also gives some great information around next steps for teaching for our teachers. So we are really looking forward to utilizing it for a variety of different reasons.
And then the second piece, our second goal was around developing curriculum resources to create or to refine our writing curriculum, to make it more robust, and again, to update it. And Stephanie and I have been working really hard on that piece this year. And so one of the things that we've done a number of things, is we have looked K through 6 and created, with the help of a teacher at Mill Pond, some I can statements looking at what are the learning targets for each grade. We've looked across like a particular grade to ensure that we're hitting all of them through the curriculum, through these I can statements. And we've also looked then to see how they align kindergarten to first to second, second to third, to ensure that we're really building on skills and that kids are not getting the same skills year after year after year. So from there, from the I can statements, which are sort of like learning targets in kid-friendly language, we've created rubrics for each individual grade level that set what is the standard for that particular grade, also in kid-friendly language for teachers to utilize. Along with that, we've created writing exemplars, or we've used writing exemplars that we've had to that are aligned to the rubric, so that teachers have a very clear vision of what they're aiming for. We're hoping to add to that from our own writing within
Right.
district as we get these up and running. And then finally, we've also created anchor units, which include a series of 15 to 20 lessons across multiple genres. So we'll have a launching unit, we have a narrative writing unit, informational writing unit, and opinion writing unit. And Stephanie and I have worked very, very closely to create these units together to ensure that there isn't that overlap, but that there's that very clear vertical alignment and articulation as you look across that K-6 writing model.
One of the things we shared last spring is there's such nuance to the skill building in writing, and sort of what, you know, a skill looks like in first grade versus second grade is so subtle. And so trying to make that as crystal clear as we possibly can for both students and teachers was sort of the goal in developing these resources. So we were able to get the units done prior to one of our most recent professional development sessions. So we did have the opportunity to have teachers look at the materials that were created, to be able to dig into the units and the resources and provide feedback around what they thought would worked really well, what we might want to make some changes on. So they have had a first sort of taste in terms of the units and the materials that we'll be using, but the goal is really to launch the materials next year. So we're in the process of designing some professional development opportunities to really support teachers as we sort of dig in and utilize the units to just really enhance our instruction.
Can I ask a question? Well, can you just tell me the difference, the main difference you found between the DRA and this new script, iReady, I think you called it, that you're going to be picking up? I know you had issues with the DRA, but I'm trying to understand what the main differences are that make this a better screener.
Well, so the screener, for one, is a digital piece where the students will be doing it on their iPads, on their devices. The data is instantaneous, so we get results in terms of really quickly. In the DRA, it's a running record in which kids and it's teachers sitting beside the student and listening to the student read, and then the student, at least for the grades 3 through 6, will go back and do some writing in response to the text. So it is time-consuming to administer the DRA across classrooms. So the digital screener will be a faster administration. When teachers are scoring the DRA, obviously we have rubrics and we have different ways to sort of ensure consistency, but there is variability that is just part of sort of assessing writing. And so in the digital screener, it's more objective. There are more components that are assessed in terms of the students will be reading fiction and nonfiction, whereas in the DRA it's one piece of writing and it's either fiction or nonfiction. So these are a couple of the different, it also with the adaptive screener, it starts them at a certain level, and based on how they're performing, the questions adjust. And so we get a true sense of sort of where students are at. Whereas the DRA is at a level that we're looking at how they interact with that text, but it's a little bit harder and more time-consuming to sort of get that pinpoint where they are in terms of their level of reading and the next steps for them. So we can see that wide range of needs and also identify areas for instructional targeting.
So is there a different type of method of administering that test for students who have special needs who may not be able to do it on the digital screener for whatever reason, whether they're not able to interact with it, the way that it's meant to be? I mean, there is something very personal about having a teacher assess the child.
And we absolutely are not suggesting that teachers don't read alongside kids, so that will be part of it as well. But this will be our assessment to ensure sort of a consistent data point across all schools, all classrooms, all students. In terms of the one of the things that we looked at when we were doing the pilot is we ensured that we had classrooms, some of our co-taught classrooms participated, some of our classrooms that have a number of dual language learners in it, as well as all of our students that were receiving Tier 2 support. So we were really looking closely to see how a variety of different students engaged in the text, in the assessment, and we did find that kids felt that it was very user-friendly. They were able to participate. They actually loved the breaks that happen. There's a little game that they get to play and have a little break in between questions. So we also got feedback from the kids. They were able to give us an opportunity to share, like, how did it feel for them? What did they like about it? What was hard? And so that was part of the pilot, to get a sense of how it would go in terms of administration.
I think the other just quick thing that I would add is that the assessment occurs over 2 days, and in 2 days you're done. You have your entire class's worth of data. So I feel like in terms of thinking about our multi-tiered systems of support, we're able to dig into those faster than we would have been with the DRA. And then also just thinking about, I think that it's important to also note that we are not taking all other assessment tools away from teachers. Like, we're looking really holistically at kids and thinking about what is the kid in front of me. And yes, we have now this district tool that everyone is going to utilize. But at the same time, we also have this toolkit of other assessments based on the kid in front of us that we can dig into if we need to.
Did you do any comparisons between the two tools, where maybe you took the same student, had them use the iReady tool, and then you administered the DRA?
Is actually a great question. One thing that the teachers were really interested in looking at, and so it was so great to be able to do the assessment in March, because the teachers really felt like they knew their students. And so across the board, the feedback from the teachers was that it felt like it represented sort of the kids. So looking at the data that they currently had on the kids and their strengths and areas for growth, they felt like it was spot on. So that felt really good to us.
Was there any consideration of how it performs with ELL students?
Yes, absolutely. And we will. Again, we had a number of students that participating in the pilot that were dual language learners. The assessment is an assessment for reading English, and so for students that are just acquiring language, it would not be an appropriate assessment for them. So we will have to sort of determine when it makes sense for a student to enter into this assessment. But for students that had acquired enough English language, they were able to access it. And again, the teachers felt like it was a really accurate representation of where they were in their literacy skills.
And this is one assessment tool out of a larger menu. So for our students who are very newly acquiring English, we would use a different assessment tool to get more information about them as a learner.
I'd like to say I really appreciate the level of questioning, because you understand there the importance of what we're looking at, which is, this is critical for the success of our students, that we have the proper assessments for them to learn to read and write. And so taking a good hard look and making this kind of change was taken very seriously. The DRA has been around for decades, and we're not the only district. Many have decided to move past them, because at this point there are better tools out there. But they have been very diligent and thoughtful in how we've gone about making our moves.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, just one question about the second goal. How well was it received by the teachers?
It was incredibly well received,
Yeah.
I have to say. I think at the K-3 level, teachers are so excited. They feel like they've been asking for this work for a while. They are ready to dig in. When I met with all the K-3 teachers in March, they were super excited. They were like, when are these coming out? When can we start them? This past spring, I've had a couple teachers reach out and say, I know you have drafts of these. Can I have copies to try it out? So I feel like we're in a great place to kind of roll this out next year.
I would say the same as well.
It's such a great update. All excited.
My only question was about ESL, so I've already asked.
Okay.
Thank you.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jen Nottingham. I'm the English department chair at Gibbons Middle School, grades 7 and 8.
So as you heard in the spring, we as a 7 through 12 group came up with 5 recommendations. And we're going to kind of talk about how that looks in each of our buildings and some collective work too in goal number 5. Want to get us started with number 1?
Sure. So the first goal that we worked on as a department was to review and update class-assigned texts in order to add more diverse and contemporary literature into our curriculum. So I can speak to grades 7 and 8 first. 7th grade, we actually added quite a few books to our 1940s/World War II historical fiction unit that we all teach. And these books offer a lot more choice to our students. They're told from different perspectives. They have different voices that really capture World War II, what was happening both in the United States and in Europe. Excuse me. So we actually, all of us implemented these new texts this year, and students really enjoyed reading them, and they chose all different texts. It was really wonderful to see. So they're still in the middle of them at the moment and finishing them up this week, but it's been really successful, and all the 7th grade teachers have implemented it. And this unit, there are 2 essential questions that the students explore, and one of them is, how does conflict shape and impact society? And the other is, how can one decision or action be a catalyst for change? So the different characters in the books definitely help to answer those questions, and they do a research project along with it, so they learn their research skills. So adding this diverse literature and giving them a lot of choices. I think we have a total of 9 books now that students can choose from, set in different locations and again told from different perspectives, different voices. So that's been great. And we're actually in the process of looking at some autobiographical texts that a couple of us have implemented. They're short memoir type stories that we have piloted, a couple teachers have, and now we are working with our other English teachers to see how we can all implement this as kind of a launch into the school year and enable students to really have texts that act as both windows and mirrors for them. And then in the process, they can share about who they are and get to know one another by looking through, reading these stories that also are all about identity and who these people are. So that's 7th grade. And 8th grade, they actually spent this year developing an entire new unit of study. And this unit also is going to be a book club unit. So there's going to be, I think we have 5 texts at the moment that we have chosen. And during this unit, students are going to explore how a single voice can create positive change in the community. And just like our 1940s unit, all of the books have been very well thought out and chosen in order to represent different perspectives and voices as well, so students will be able to choose that. That will be implemented next year, so they really spent a lot of this year really choosing those books and coming up with the learning targets and the essential question and all of that. So that is the progress that they made.
Right, and in terms of the high school for updating our texts, we were looking at diversity in genre, in time period, in voice, in structure, in the type of story that was told. So for 9 through 11, we have 4 common texts per course. So we kind of started with what are our required texts now and what is represented and where do we feel like we have some holes. And then looked at other texts that we have as options. We've brought in quite a few contemporary and diverse voices over the last few years and made some decisions about swapping some of those into the required text. So for example, we had 3 books that we did summer of 2020 where we did 3 new units, and they were optional units at that time, and we've swapped them and made them required for certain courses. And then with grade 11, we've been purchasing a lot of contemporary and diverse voices over the last few years as people have kind of said, hey, I read this. So looking at kind of what we had and making some swaps there as well. trying to keep both your classic voice in there as well as your contemporary, as well as your kind of diversity being represented. Grade 10 was a little more of a struggle in terms of being able to swap things out. It's not a place where people have necessarily asked to pilot a certain title or things, but what we have done with grade 10 is I've identified titles that we know we want to replace. So that is something that we'll be working on, and our grade 12, both AP and senior seminars, are very conscious of this and kind of thinking about some texts to add into those courses. So this took a lot of conversation. In terms of our curriculum work, we just have our department time once a month. So this actually took until about November for all of these conversations to happen. These will be implemented for next school year, and I think people are getting to a place where if they haven't tried some of these new texts, they're looking forward to trying something new in their classrooms. And kind of, especially in that grade 10, looking to kind of freshen up some of the voices that we have represented there.
Okay, so our second goal that we worked on was developing writing prompts that incorporate student choice and voice for one text at each grade level. So we really wanted to, during our curriculum review, we noticed that a lot of our writing prompts, essays, they had just one prompt that they could choose from, or not choose. There's no choice there. Sorry. And so we wanted to make sure we added more choice into at least one at each grade level. So 7th grade, we looked at our Outsiders unit, and we really looked at what themes we focus on in that novel, and we updated our learning targets. And in that process, we developed 3 really great essay prompts, all connected to the themes that the students study. So as they go through the novel, they look for those themes in the book, and then at the end they're able to make a choice of what theme they would like to write about and find evidence for. So we implemented that this year. We developed those prompts in the fall, and then we all implemented them, and they went really well for at least the first round. So next year we'll probably look at them again and see if we need to tweak them at all or add anything more to those essay prompts, but that was great. And then the 8th grade, a couple teachers shared their narrative writing task that they do. So they complete a narrative where the students read a short story and finish the ending, continue the story. And for the past however many years, they have been all writing about one story. So the students have not had a choice in what story they want to complete the ending for. And the 7th grade, we do have choice. The students read a variety of short stories, and then they can choose which one they would like to continue. And so the 8th grade teachers have made the decision they would like to do the same thing. So they're actually going to be looking at the short stories they teach. That kind of goes back to goal number 1. We're going to continue working on adding more diversity into our literature, but they're going to look at the short stories that they offer and they teach, and then they're going to be offering more choice with what short story the students can write an ending for. So that would be great.
Yeah, and at the high school, we focus more on grades 9 through 11 since our senior courses are a little bit different. So for here, we kind of piggybacked on those required texts that we've selected for each course. We picked one to work with and talked about kind of what are we doing now in terms of our writing prompts, and what do we have in common, and how can we then add this tier. So we ended up working in grade level groups. We can't have, because so many of us teach multiple grades, we kind of, in some places, not if you taught grade 9, you weren't necessarily in that grade because you needed to be in, say, grade 11, because we needed everybody to have kind of a good working group. But we did work in those grade level groups, kind of sharing current prompts, processes, and developed a common prompt for one text for each course that offers student choice and we also added in resources for teachers as they were providing instruction and working towards supporting students. So I thought that was a nice piece of people coming together and saying, oh, I have this resource, or this is how I kind of break down this part of this assignment, and just kind of putting them and linking them into the document so that the resources are all together for teachers when they go to implement these. And again, this will be implemented next school year for us.
Okay, and our third goal was to create one common writing assignment at each grade level that gives students an opportunity to write for something that's not in response to literature. So out of our curriculum review, we also noticed that most of our writing assignments were all tied to literature that the students were reading in class, and we really wanted to give them opportunities to write for different audiences, different purposes. So this year, the 7th grade started really talking about some ideas of what we want to create for next year, but we have to finish this in the fall. So we do plan on creating a creative assignment that is not connected to any of our text, but that offers students opportunity to write for something they're passionate about. So we actually want to turn it into a writing contest too. That was what we brainstormed, was coming up with a variety of prompts and giving students the choice of what they would want to write about, and then having almost a writing contest in the 7th grade. But we need to, in the fall, really start looking at our writing skills that we are teaching throughout the year. That is one of our next goals. For next year, it will be writing, and really looking at that progression of writing skills from grade level to grade level. So we want to look at that, and we want to look at our units and what writing skills we're teaching within units, so that the students will be able to then make a choice and participate in a writing contest with those skills already built in, if that makes sense. So we held off on actually creating something because we want to make sure that it's meaningful, that the students are prepared for that. But it will happen, and we will be working on that in the fall. 8th grade, they looked at their personal memoir assignment as well as their poetry. So they already have a personal memoir that students write, so they work together on refining that assignment and their poetry assignment. Our 8th grade, now it's becoming an annual poetry slam where students can write their own poetry about any topic that they are passionate about. And so we've had the poetry slam 2 years in a row. It's been wonderful. So this year they worked more on refining what that assignment is and the requirements, and the students did an unbelievable job this year with the poetry slam. Just the passion and the meaning and personal parts of their life were put into their poetry. So that was a success for sure. So that's what we focused on at the middle school.
All right, and for grades 9 through 12, similar to what Jen was saying, when we looked at our prompts, they were pretty heavy on the literary analysis end. Definitely did or do some personal writing, but it's in pockets or it's in small places. So we were looking for some consistency and a larger kind of unit to work with for each grade level. And when we were creating our assignments, we, instead of going by course, we kind of thought grade level. So we have one that will be for grade 9, and then 10, 11, and 12, kind of with a focus. And what we really wanted to have happen was for each of these to kind of build on each other, not just in skill, but also in concept. So for grade 9, there were about half of us in the department right prior to the hybrid year, got together and created a personal narrative unit that we kind of used with everybody that year. We did probably 25 to 30 samples of different topics. So if you wanted to read a personal narrative on sports, we had a whole list, all linked to document, and then students engaged with a couple different models using a student response reader response approach, and then also looked at writing style, and then used that to create their own personal narrative. So as we were talking about wanting to have something that we adopted for the whole department at each grade level, we thought that grade 9 would be a great place to start this kind of thinking with the personal writing and giving students choice, and they love to write about themselves. It's a comfortable place for them, and then even in situations where sometimes they're like, but I don't like writing about myself, we're like, you don't have to share anything super deep, right? And it's always fun to be like, I've read a great personal narrative on somebody picking blueberries, right? And it doesn't need to be this huge momentous moment. And you can write about yourself and share something about even the smallest things. So we were starting there with grade 9. For grade 10, we were looking at an assignment that most of our grade 10 teachers use, which is kind of a My Life essay, where they're using a series of vignettes in a metaphorical way. So it kind of builds on that grade 9, here's my one narrative story. Here's taking a series of events in your life and kind of putting them together. For grade 11, we're going more memoir approach and looking at that nuance of how do you tell a story without coming out and saying, hey, this is what I've learned. We're also thinking about giving students a place if they wanted to start their college essay or have a place to springboard from their college essay, they could use this. And for grade 12, we're kind of looking more at a reflective piece of them looking back kind of over their past 4 years, 12 years, however we kind of want to have them just reflect as they kind of start their next journey. So that's where we are with that kind of personal narrative voice, and kind of really guiding and thinking about that vertical and horizontal alignment.
And just to add on a little bit to that, we are all talking about these creative writing pieces, and we're going to make sure whatever we develop in the 7th grade that it is not the same type of assignment every year as they go through the grades. So we want to give them a variety of options and different types of writing. So it's good. It's good work, vertical work that we're doing. The 4th goal is we wanted to review and update supplemental nonfiction texts that are meaningful and relevant to the unit's objectives. We felt it was really important that we look at all the units that we teach and the literature that we teach to ensure that we have nonfiction in there as well, not just fiction. So the 7th grade teachers for our 1940s World War II historical fiction unit, we actually did quite a few things. We aligned all our learning targets. We revised our research project that students complete. They really have a lot of choice in what topic they want to research from the 1940s. And we updated the resources that students can use in order to complete that research project. And then one of the things I was most excited about is we took our students to the Auschwitz exhibit in Boston, and we really put a lot of time and preparation into that, and it was a huge success. And unfortunately, it will not be there in September, but what we took away that we now have that we can use each year, we have hundreds of pictures that we have put together in a slideshow. We also have the written transcripts from all of the audio from every stop in that Auschwitz exhibit, and we have that in multiple languages. And it's just invaluable. It's amazing. So even my students who couldn't attend this, they were able to go and read some of these audio clips and look at the images that we took, and this is just amazing content that we can now use each year with this unit. So I was really excited about that. And then 8th grade, with their new unit that they developed, they actually chose a variety of nonfiction picture books that they're going to use to teach and kind of launch into the unit. They're going to focus on specific skills that they want to teach with it, but every picture book is about a person who has used their voice in order to promote positive change in the community. So this will be a really great way to introduce the unit to students, and the 8th grade teachers will be continuing to work on that, on the specifically the skills that will be taught with those picture books during our Shrewsbury Institute, because pretty much my whole department is going, which is amazing, and they'll continue working on it next year as they implement it. So, yeah.
All right. Okay. And at the high school, we frankly just ran out of time. We did not formally get to this goal. Supplementary material is something that we definitely do incorporate into our units and bring into our classrooms. This is a way that we are helping students build connections between fiction and the world around them. Our plan in the fall is to kind of do this a little more formally and kind of update some of our documents and kind of that common shared drive and getting things in a place that everybody can access and is aware of. Because sometimes it's like, oh, I read this, right? And I just immediately, this would go great with what I'm doing right now, and it's not necessarily kind of out there for the whole department. So, yep, we ran out of time here and have plans to kind of implement and really talk about this in the fall, in addition to next year's goals.
Yes.
Do you want me to start this one?
Sure.
Okay. And then our last one was a subcommittee that was grades 6 through 12, looking at the practices of choice reading. So we met monthly during one of the extended Wednesdays, and we had quite a group. It was great. A nice range in terms of grade level, as well as we had Anita Salucci, the librarian. We had some special ed teachers that were with us as well. So a nice eclectic group with a lot of excitement and interest in this topic. And what we ended up doing was developing some kind of expectations for moving forward and implementing choice reading consistently in grades 7 through 12. So we have some expectations around independent reading time during class, as well as what homework expectations will be, some guidance around what assessment tools could look like, and some unit design. And then we have a lot of teachers participating in Stephanie's course at Shrewsbury Institute, a novel approach, where they will kind of start thinking about what this looks like. At the high school, we are going to be piloting both book clubs and full choice units next year, with then the following year being full implementation.
Yeah. I think what I really loved about this work is we defined what an independent reader is. What is that? And what do we categorize as independent reading? And we really just came to the conclusion is an independent reader is a student who can read, whether it's a class assigned text, a choice text, a variety of texts on their own, and have the reading skills to be able to do that. And we came up with I can statements for the skills we want all of our students to acquire by the time they leave Westborough. So skills that we want to work on every single year here, and how do we go about doing that? So we have a whole list. I mean, some of our I can statements are things like I can select an appropriate book for different purposes. I can choose a variety of genres that I enjoy reading. I can identify and select a just right book. And then skills, specific skills. I can make text-to-text connections between my independent reading books. I can make text-to-text connections by exploring how a text impacts or it changes my own perceptions, values, and thoughts. I can make text-to-world connections by relating a text to events in the past, present, and future. So I'm excited about this and the skills that we all agreed are what we want our students to acquire as we are reading in class, and to really promote that choice, but also it's guided choice, and we can push them and teach them these skills that they can then apply to the books that they're reading, whether, again, it's one class assigned text or they have a choice of 9 books and they're choosing the right one for them and they're applying the skills that we practice in class to their books so that they feel confident to tackle more challenging books as they go through the grades. That makes sense. So I thought it was exciting work.
It was. It was. We had some great conversations. Yeah, it was a really, really like thoughtful group of people too. And I think people were excited and immediately were implementing work throughout the year and coming back to the meeting with like, hey, I tried this, and here's something I think we need to think a little bit more about as we put together these recommendations for the department.
Great work, you guys. Really great work.
Thanks.
It's great work.
It's been a lot.
I want to emphasize how important it is for the English department to be doing this kind of work, because there's, in some other subjects, there's a clear path of what you're learning. And it's, the math, the science, the history. And in English, there's a lot of room to go in different directions, and having a well-balanced set of writings and readings, writing assignments and reading, and having choice and not just whole class novels all the time. I mean, that sort of making it clear to everybody in their departments that, we want a well-balanced English program that represents contemporary and classics, and all of these pieces they've been talking about. So I commend you for the work you've been doing.
Thank you.
Yeah, cool.
Well, thank you, all of you. I'm very impressed with the quality of your work. The amount of time you clearly spent on this, and I also appreciate the passion you have for this topic. I can tell you could talk about it even longer, and that's great. I feel like our students are in very good hands. I'm very impressed you put a lot of thought and reflect on not just the little things, but also a general direction, and like I like the perspective of focusing on those I can statements. Like, that's a great way to step back and ask ourselves, like, what do we really want the kids to learn in the end? What kind of skills we want them to have? I think that's great. I don't know if this is on topic, because I know the conversation is focused on these goals. You did say the word prompt a lot of times, and that made me thinking about different kind of prompt. And I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask that question, but are you worried at all about the use of large language models like ChatGPT and that entering the classrooms? Are you
Simply, yes.
I know there are better tools to detect the use of these language models.
Yeah, they're getting less and less reliable. So that's been kind of the challenge, is when there is that suspicion. I know we talked about this last spring too, and Jen talked about, like, we're familiar with students writing. So then when something comes in as a little like, sometimes proving that has been really, really challenging. I know at the high school we're about to enter into final exams, and a lot of us are going back to pen and paper, just so that we don't have to navigate any question at the end of the school year. But really having a lot of conversation in the department, and I've also had conversation with other department chairs in across the state, and everybody's struggling and nobody has great answers. There are some apps out there that people are using in terms of looking at students' kind of revision over time and the use of the document. There are also ways to navigate around those too. So we're kind of in a learning phase. And how best to navigate this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I know. I think it was you, Daniel, who you keep repeating. We have to explore the promise and the peril. I think you were the one that said that.
We wore T-shirts about that.
Okay, well, that's
true.
been said quite a bit.
We had a debate about it last summer at our summer retreat, and one of us put on peril and the other one put on promise. And
right.
Yeah,
but I think, yes, it's definitely a challenge. I think all of us have a lot of learning to do, and it's constantly changing. And at least at the middle school level, I've already had a lot of conversations with my classes and talking about, how can you possibly use this? What are the the positive, beneficial ways you can use this verse. Well, you're just having it write your whole paper, so that's not okay. So like teaching them, we're gonna have to figure that out, like the parameters of how to use this, how not to use this, and really look at all that. But I know that next year, our professional development's going to be focused on that quite a bit. I'm sure we're gonna be figuring out kind of all of those, okay, this is what you can use it for, at least at the moment. Here's ways you shouldn't use it and why, and really talking to the kids about, we want your writing, your work. I want to see what you can do. So
Yeah, we talk a lot about like, it's not just the writing too, but it's the thinking.
Yeah.
Right? Like we're in the business of helping students think, right? And become critical thinkers, and not wanting them to bypass that step and that process and that learning. But yeah, it is a concern, and it is something that we're all learning and navigating and figuring out as we go.
Thank you. I mean, it's not easy to chase technology that's evolving
Yeah.
so quickly.
Yeah,
But
for sure.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I was also going to ask about LLMs, so
Yeah.
thank you for answering that question.
It's on everybody's minds.
Yeah. You know, it is possible that some of the work that you're doing that are based more around personal narratives and memoir could maybe skirt some of that, but you know, you could also plug into ChatGPT.
Yep,
write
that's
me
what
a
we've talked
personal
about too.
narrative,
It's almost like
you
no
know, given
prompt
this-
is totally proof, right?
I really want to thank you for the presentation. I really appreciate all the hard work that you're doing. What I especially like is the way that you are aligning the goals from pre-K through 6th, and then 7th through 12th. I think that's a really nice way of designing it, and working out ways that students can make that linear progression in a you know, understandable kind of way that can be assessed as they go along. I was curious. This is sort of I guess a tangential question, but I was wondering if you could give us a sense of some of the examples of the new texts that you're adopting that are bringing more diverse voices and experiences.
Yeah. So for grade 9, and I'm not going to probably remember all of them, so forgive me. For grade 9, 2 books that we had done during that summer curriculum were The Poet X by Elizabeth Acevedo, and You Bring the Distant Near, and I'm going to blank out, Matali Perkins. Those were 2 units that we had done over the summer, and they were optional units. We've brought in You Bring the Distant Near as a required, keeping The Poet X as an optional, but I think you'll find people might start adopting that one too a little bit more. We already had A Raisin in the Sun in there that we wanted to keep. We had originally, people were kind of playing around with our 2 plays that we typically do were Our Town and A Raisin in the Sun, and for the last few years we've done that as an option. So we took out Our Town as a requirement and said everybody needs to do A Raisin in the Sun. She's a pretty influential playwright, award winner, kind of really stands out for her time period as well, so we wanted to keep that in there. We also do Mouse by Art Spiegelman, so it's diverse in a number of ways. It's a graphic narrative. It is about his life and reflecting and interviewing his dad, who was in the Holocaust. So it's that kind of Jewish experience, but also looking at that generational trauma and a diverse format for us. And then for grade 10, that was the one that's a little more kind of in the works, but for our level 2 and level 3, one of the summer curriculum books we had done was A Patron Saints by Randy Rebay. And that became a required text. It's one that most people have been using the last couple of years, so we were like, let's just make it pretty consistent. For grade 11, we kept Of Mice and Men for our kind of very classic story. We have been doing an August Wilson play for the last few years, so kind of kept that in place. We've been very fortunate in that Trinity rep for the last few years in Providence has actually done that as one of their student matinees. We've been able to go. This year, we have a snow day, Amber, on April 4th. He's a Pulitzer Prize winning playwright, and we have a lot of choice there. If you're not familiar with his collection, he's kind of known as having this century collection. He's written a play for each decade of the 20th century, and we have 7 of those at a larger scale for people to kind of choose from. And we brought in An American Sunrise by Joy Harjo. And then we have, we've split with our level 2, 3, and 4. So our 3s are reading, come to me, Homegoing by Yaa Gyasi, and our level 4s are reading Beloved by Toni Morrison.
I want to thank you for, well, first, my son was scheduled to make the trip to Providence, and he missed out on it. Very disappointed.
Yeah, we were all pretty
and
disappointed.
Then I want to thank you for using Poet X. My daughter's in the 8th grade.
Yeah.
She absolutely loved the book and has since read everything by Acevedo.
Yeah, it's a wonderful story. I've used it since we purchased it, and students really respond really, really well to it. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, guys.
One of the points you highlighted, I just want to speak to that. That's so critical, or what you were speaking to, critical thinking and sort of bypassing that, and how I find that with AI, I think we focus often on the words and the sentence structure and just putting that all together and how that's what they're pulling. But I think that it's the bigger issue, and I think the more damaging potential issue is that it's not their idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the bigger, huge problem, because if you just type in there, to give you an idea, you'll get the idea. And even if you don't take the words in its exact format, it's still preventing you from going through that process yourself. So that's I think, a major issue. I have a question about the writing piece. I think it's part of your goal 3 for 12th grade, or so 11th and 12th perhaps. Second semester of 11th grade and maybe first of 12th. So I'm wondering if there is any structure where, in the assignments for the kids to be working on their personal essays for college as part of, their classroom writing assignment, and I mean sort of from start to end, so that they have something. 12th graders are super busy. They're doing a lot of different things. Sometimes they're not able to put together a quality essay. Oftentimes the teachers are reviewing them on their time anyways, and providing edits, which is wonderful, but it may streamline the process and make it easier for the kids if they're also able to incorporate that right into their...
Yeah, so that's where we were thinking of that memoir piece for grade 11, so that they could leave junior year with either, depending on how much kind of energy they put into it, a completely finished essay that could be used for their college essay, or one that just needs some polishing and refining. So we were talking about providing students with the prompts for the common app. Here, this year's prompts, if you want to choose one of these, you may. So yes, that was absolutely where we were thinking with this kind of narrative writing.
Okay, awesome.
Tim?
The main question I'd like to ask, so I know we talked about updating the text and the things that the students are reading. I think you gave a good sense of how the process for the thought that goes into it and how those are selected from a group of books, but can you speak quickly to how the books are originally identified, of which ones will be considered?
Yeah, so I know at the high school, we kind of use a range of things. It could be somebody has read something kind of on their own and then brings it to the department. We have used the teaching tolerance kind of guide for selecting diverse texts for schools as a way to kind of walk ourselves through thinking about the book critically, and we also can consult with our school librarian and looking at reviews as well from reputable kind of organizations that are specifically school focused.
Yeah.
kind of align with what
Yes.
you've done too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Reagan, your chance to influence what happens next year. Any comments?
I don't have a question, but I just want to say that I appreciate, especially with like the college, because as a junior right now, all of my essays are very literary analysis and based on passages, so I feel like I kind of lose the opportunity to talk about a personal narrative and memoir. So I feel like adding that to the curriculum next year would be like very helpful as a junior.
Yeah, a little more consistency in that regard.
Yeah.
Yep.
My turn. It's exciting to see that you're excited about what you're doing. I think it's so much easier to learn when somebody is excited about what you're teaching. Second piece of, I guess, that thought is that, to me, going back to it, my high school career, what you're suggesting is an exciting way, I think, to bring kids into the environment of wanting to learn, to be able to have the freedom to choose the kind of things that they're going to do, to be able to pick from a different genres of what they read, and then develop the tools and techniques to take it forward. And I think it becomes, most people have great difficulty being able to sit down and write that first sentence of whatever the theme is that they're after. And I think the process and the program that you're suggesting will get them well beyond that point and be able to develop from what they've read the thought process of not so much what was in it, but how it was structured and how then you go forward in your own life, not only with what you read, but then what you can do. And I think that's exciting, because I think if you master a reasonably high level of English, at least in this country, you can do very, very well, irrespective of what your, what degrees you hold. If you can speak well, write well, you'll do well. And obviously got to have something up here too, but I think it's a great way to start.
I think it's a really, just to be able to summarize the piece of this, it's a nice report for you to receive on your last meeting, to see the intellectual process of strong professionals using curriculum review to dig deeply and to look at all of the strands, the curriculum, the contemporary work, the learning goals, the student voice. But it takes bringing together people and kind of meandering through it long enough till you actually find the goals and you dig deeply. I mean, we have strong programming. It's easy to be comfortable with, like, we love what we're doing, but you can both love it and then enhance it, grow it, refine it, keep it fresh. And I think that's what you guys have brought to this. And the exciting thing about this is you're looking at the leaders of the departments, you're looking at the people that will run the PD, you're looking at the people that will bring that motivation and that voice with their faculty. And that's where you get high quality professionalism, where faculty are invested, they know their voices at the table, and you balance the timing against when your teams were ready. And I respect that, because you're going to end up going further, and your implementations will be much deeper. So strong curriculum review. Thank you to Daniel, I think, leading these kind of pieces of work, putting the teams together, and then giving people the time and space to do good intellectual work. Serves your district at a super high level. So thank you, you guys. Really
Thank you.
great,
Thank you.
really great work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Well, the next item on our agenda is an executive session to, under Chapter 38, Section 21E, A2, can't read it, to conduct strategy session in preparation for negotiations with non-union personnel and to reconvene in open session, for which the last item on the agenda would be a discussion and a vote on the food service contract. So with that, our open session ends, and we would ask all those who haven't been invited to leave the room.
And I would think as well, just a reminder, it's been a while since we did an executive session where you were coming back into session. If people in the audience want to wait downstairs, when the executive session opens, we'll call you back in if you want to be here for that vote and discussion. But the actual discussion of the contract will be an executive session. So we'll move into that for private session, then I'll come back out and let you know when we're open for more discussion, okay? Thank you so much. And Melissa's staying to join us, and then Reagan, you get to go home.
Okay.
Which is so nice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Thank
All
you
right.
for having me.
Yeah, good luck.
Enjoy your summer.
thank you for waiting. We've had a good discussion.
TV, we good?
You good in there? All right, we're back live. Mr. Chair, I turn it back to you.
Okay, our duty now, as the last item of this agenda, is to award the contract for food services in the town of Westborough going forward. And I'll make the motion that we award the contract to Chartwell.
I will second.
Is there discussion? Okay, all those in favor? All those opposed? It appears to be a vote of 3-2 in favor of an award to Chartwell. With that vote, then, we're done with business today, and thank you all for being here.
All right, and we will, I'll update Anita.
Move to adjourn.
Yeah, you have to move to
Yep, we need a
adjourn.
motion to adjourn.
I move to adjourn.
I'll second that.
All those in favor? Aye. Very good,
All
thank
right,
you all.
thank you very much.